The last stop. Haven Station hung in the void like a tarnished coin catching starlight, its weathered hull bearing the scars of 20 years on the frontier. Located at the very edge of mapped space, it served as humanity's final refueling outpost before ships ventured into the unknown. The station wasn't much to look at, a cobbled-together collection of modules and repurposed cargo containers arranged in a rough wheel formation. But to those who knew it, Haven was exactly what its name promised. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck's curved window, watching the distant stars with eyes that had long grown accustomed to the endless night. Her reflection showed a woman in her mid-40s, her black hair streaked with silver and laugh lines etched around her eyes. She wore the practical coveralls favored by the station's crew, with tools hanging from nearly every pocket. "Captain, we've got another converter failing in Section C," came Miguel's voice over the comm. The young engineer's frustration was evident even through the station's aging communication system. "That's the third one this month." Sarah sighed, already reaching for her tablet to adjust power distribution. "Patch it through to my screen, Miguel. Let's see what we're dealing with." Haven Station wasn't fancy like the massive ports closer to Earth, with their gleaming hulls and state-of-the-art systems. Out here, everything was second-hand or third-hand, kept running through human ingenuity and stubborn determination. The station's crew of 12 had become experts at making do with whatever they had. "At least the hydroponics bay is producing well this cycle," commented Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the station's medical officer and resident botanist, as she joined Sarah at the window. "Those modified beans are giving us 30% more yield than standard crops." Sarah nodded, allowing herself a small smile. The plants were yet another example of their necessity-driven innovations. Earth crops adapted to thrive in the strange conditions at the edge of known space. The calm of their conversation was interrupted by an urgent beep from the communication console. Lisa Wong, their communications specialist, frowned as she adjusted her headset. "Captain, I'm picking up something weird. Well, you should hear this." Sarah crossed the console as Lisa patched the signal through to the main speakers. A haunting series of pulses and whistles filled the command center, unlike anything they'd heard before. "That's not human," Yuki said unnecessarily, her eyes wide. "No," Sarah agreed, studying the waveform on the display. "And it's not from any of the known trading species either. Lisa, can you clean it up?" As Lisa worked her magic with the station's communication arrays, the signal gradually resolved into something more coherent. Beneath the strange harmonics, there was a clear pattern. A distress call, but in no language they'd ever encountered. "It's coming from the direction of the Carina Void," Lisa reported, referring to the vast, unexplored region beyond their station. "Whatever it is, it's big. Really big. The mass readings are off the charts." Sarah felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders as she considered their options. Haven Station was humanity's furthest outpost, which made them the first point of contact for anything coming from that direction. They had protocols for first contact situations, of course, but those assumed they'd have the full might of Earth's fleet backing them up. "How long until they reach us?" she asked. "At their current velocity, 4 hours," Lisa answered after a moment's calculation. Sarah straightened her spine, decision made. "All right, people, this is what we've trained for. Miguel, I want those converters patched as best you can. We might need full power. Yuki, prep medical for possible xenobiology. Lisa, keep working on that signal. See if you can decode any more of it. And someone wake up Devon. We'll need his linguistic expertise." As her crew sprang into action, Sarah returned to the window, watching the stars. Out there, something was approaching. Something that could change everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. Haven Station might not be the biggest or the most advanced outpost humanity had built, but it was theirs, and they would face whatever was coming with the same resourcefulness that had kept them alive out here all these years. In the next 4 hours, they would either make history or become a cautionary tale about the dangers of the frontier. Sarah intended to make sure it was the former. Overhead, the station's systems hummed their familiar song, punctuated by the occasional clank or hiss that every member of the crew had learned to interpret like a language of its own. Sarah allowed herself a moment to appreciate the symphony of their home before turning back to her duties. Whatever was out there in the void, Haven Station would be ready. First contact crisis. The alien vessel emerged from the darkness like a cathedral made of light and shadow. Its hull was a latticework of crystalline structures that seemed to pulse with internal energy, dwarfing Haven Station by several orders of magnitude. As it drew closer, the crew could see damage across its surface, great rents in the ethereal material that sparked with failing containment fields. "Holy shit," Miguel whispered from his engineering station, voicing what everyone was thinking. Devin Marshall, the station's linguist, hadn't taken his eyes off his console since being awakened. The signal structure is fascinating. It's based on mathematical principles, prime numbers, geometric sequences. They're trying to make it as universal as possible. Sarah watched the approaching vessel on the main display, her mind racing through possibilities and contingencies. Lisa, broadcast our standard greeting package on all frequencies. Devin, work with her to adapt their communication style. Show them we understand the mathematical basis. The next hour was a blur of activity as Haven's crew worked to establish communication with their visitors. The alien vessel, they learned, carried refugees from a civilization calling themselves the Lumina. Their star system had encountered a catastrophic anomaly, forcing them to flee with whatever they could salvage. Their drive system is failing, Miguel reported, analyzing the sensor data. Whatever they're using for propulsion, it's nothing like our tech. But I can see the degradation patterns. They're running on borrowed time. Sarah felt the weight of the moment. The Lumina ship carried over 3,000 souls, according to their transmissions. Their vessel's damage was critical, and their remaining power reserves were barely sufficient to maintain life support. They needed help, but Haven Station was barely equipped to handle its own crew's needs, let alone those of thousands of refugees. "Captain," Yuki called from her station, "I've been analyzing their biological data. They're photosynthetic crystalline beings. Their life support requirements are completely different from ours. They need specific wavelengths of radiation and certain mineral compounds to survive." The revelation hit Sarah like a physical force. No wonder they'd fled when their star began to fail. Their entire species literally lived on starlight. Haven's standard emergency protocols wouldn't help them at all. "Miguel," Sarah called, an idea forming. "Those failed converters in Section C. What if we repurposed them? Their resonance chambers might be able to generate the right kind of radiation if we modify them." The engineer's eyes lit up as he caught her meaning. "It would be unstable as hell, but, yeah, maybe. We'd need to rebuild the containment fields from scratch, probably cannibalize the backup life support systems." "Do it," Sarah ordered. "Lisa, contact any ships in range. We need all the spare parts we can get. Yuki, work with the Lumina on the exact specifications they need. Devin, keep that communication channel clear. We can't afford any misunderstandings." As her crew scrambled to their tasks, Sarah opened a direct channel to the Lumina vessel. The being that appeared on her screen was beautiful and alien, a crystalline form that shifted and flowed like liquid light. She could see the strain in its fluctuating patterns, the equivalent of exhaustion in their species. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of Haven Station," she said, Divin's translation software converting her words into mathematical pulses. "We're going to help you, but I need you to understand something. We're not a big station. We don't have state-of-the-art equipment. What we're attempting is dangerous and might not work. But we're going to try everything we can to save your people." The Lumina's response came as a cascade of light patterns that the software translated. "We understand, Captain Chen. We have traveled far and seen many worlds. Never have we encountered beings so quick to aid strangers. Whatever the outcome, know that your offer of help alone gives us hope." Sarah turned back to her crew, seeing the same determination in their faces that she felt. They had 4 days of power reserves left in the Lumina vessel, 4 days to accomplish what would normally take months of engineering and testing. 4 days to either save 3,000 lives or watch them fade away. "All right, people," she announced. "Let's show our guests what humans can do when our backs are against the wall." Outside the station's windows, the crystalline ship hung in space like a wounded star, its light flickering, but not yet extinguished. Haven's crew had faced countless challenges in their years on the frontier, but nothing like this. Yet as Sarah watched her people spring into action, she felt a surge of pride. This was humanity at its best, reaching out to help, finding solutions where none seemed possible, refusing to accept failure as an option. The next 4 days would push them to their limits, but Sarah knew one thing with absolute certainty. As long as there was a chance, Haven Station would not let these people die. Engineering the impossible. Day 2 of the crisis, and Haven Station looked like a junkyard had exploded inside it. Every corridor was filled with dismantled equipment, torn-out panels, and jury-rigged testing apparatus. The air smelled of ozone and hot metal, punctuated by the occasional spark from overloaded circuits. Miguel stood in the center of what used to be the backup life support control room, now transformed into an impromptu engineering lab. Holographic diagrams floated around him, showing the complex interaction of energy fields they were trying to create. Sweat dripped from his forehead as he adjusted another set of calculations. "The resonance chamber from Converter 3 is holding stable," he reported, not looking up from his work. "But we're still getting energy spikes that could tear the whole thing apart if we try to scale up." Sarah nodded, studying the readouts. They'd made progress, but not enough. The makeshift radiation generator they'd cobbled together could sustain maybe a dozen lumina, but they needed something thousands of times more powerful. And they were running out of time. "Captain," Lisa's voice came over the comm. "2 ships just dropped out of FTL. Independent traders responding to our call for parts." "Finally some good news," Sarah muttered. "Direct them to docking bays 3 and 4. She turned to Miguel. "What else do we need?" The engineer consulted his list. Plasma conduits, isolation fields, anything with quantum shielding. And if anyone's got an industrial-grade particle accelerator lying around, that would be great. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission from the Lumina vessel. The crystalline being that appeared on the screen was dimmer than before, their equivalent of severe exhaustion. "Captain Chen, we've completed the modifications to our tertiary power systems as requested. But I must inform you that our primary containment field is degrading faster than predicted. We estimate 36 hours remaining, not the 48 previously calculated." Sarah felt her stomach drop, but kept her voice steady. "Understood. We'll adapt our timeline." After ending the transmission, she allowed herself one moment to close her eyes and take a deep breath. Then she hit the station-wide comm. "All hands, timetable has accelerated. I need everyone's best ideas. Now." The response was immediate. Yuki's voice came first. "What if we use the hydroponics bay's growth accelerators? They're designed to manipulate photonic energy." "Too weak," Miguel cut in. "But wait, the principle could work. If we combined it with the magnetic containment fields from the fuel processors and the quantum filters from the water recycling system," added Dr. Zhang, their physicist. "The wavelength modulators could be repurposed." Ideas flew back and forth across the comm system as Haven's crew did what humans did best: innovate under pressure. Sarah moved between workstations, coordinating efforts, making decisions on the fly as they cannibalized their own station to save the aliens who had become their friends. The 2 trader ships proved to be a goldmine of useful parts, their captains more interested in helping than profit. Word had spread about the situation at Haven, and more ships were on their way, bringing whatever they could spare. It wasn't just about saving the Lumina anymore. This had become a test of human resourcefulness and determination. 20 hours into their shortened deadline, they were ready for the first full-scale test. The device they'd created filled an entire cargo bay, a towering construct of salvaged technology that hummed with barely contained energy. It looked like something out of a nightmare, with cooling pipes and power conduits snaking everywhere, held together with spot welds and prayer. "Everything's triple-checked," Miguel reported, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. "If it's going to work, this is our best shot." Sarah studied the readouts one last time. They'd pushed the station's systems far beyond their design limits. If the device failed catastrophically, they could lose the whole station. But if they did nothing, the Lumina would certainly die. "Begin power-up sequence," she ordered. The device's hum grew louder as energy began flowing through its jerry-rigged systems. Warning alerts flashed across every screen as the station's power grid struggled to handle the massive energy draw. The deck plates vibrated beneath their feet. "Containment field holding," Miguel called out. "Radiation output approaching target levels." A sudden crack echoed through the cargo bay, followed by the screech of overstressed metal. Sarah's heart nearly stopped as she saw one of the main power conduits beginning to rupture. "Shut it down," she yelled, but Miguel was already shaking his head. "We can't," he shouted back. "The feedback would blow the whole system. It has to complete the cycle." The next 30 seconds were the longest of Sarah's life. The device screamed like a wounded animal as its components were pushed to their absolute limits. Warning sirens blared throughout the station. Just when she thought the whole thing was about to explode, the power cycle completed, and the cacophony of noise dropped to a manageable level. "Holy shit," Miguel breathed, staring at his readings. It worked. "The radiation output is stable. It's exactly what the Lumina need." Sarah allowed herself a moment of pure relief before turning to the next challenge. "Okay, people, now comes the hard part. We need to figure out how to safely transfer 3,000 crystal beings from their ship to our cargo bay without losing a single one of them." As her crew began tackling this new problem with the same determination they'd shown all along, Sarah looked out the viewport at the Lumina vessel. Its light was dimmer than ever, but help was finally within reach. They'd done the impossible once today. Now they just had to do it again. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Sarah was already thinking about how to make the device permanent, how to transform Haven Station into a true sanctuary for these remarkable beings. Because that's what humans did. They didn't just solve problems. They built foundations for the future. The coming storm. The transfer of the Lumina had been underway for 6 hours when Lisa's sensors detected something massive approaching from the direction the refugees had fled. Her hands flew across her console, trying to get better readings through the interference. "Captain," she called, her voice tight with concern, "you need to see this." Sarah crossed to the communication station, leaving Miguel to oversee the delicate process of moving crystalline beings through the specially modified shuttle they'd crafted from spare parts. The sensor display showed a roiling mass of energy approaching at faster than light speeds, warping space around it. "Get me the Lumina ship," Sarah ordered, and moments later, their crystalline contact appeared on screen, dimmer than ever. "Yes, we see it," the being confirmed before Sarah could ask. "It is why we fled. The anomaly that destroyed our star system has become aware. Hunting. We thought we had more time." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "How long until it reaches us?" "At current velocity, approximately 10 hours. The Lumina's light patterns showed clear distress. We have only transferred 1/5 of our people. Even at maximum speed, we cannot complete the evacuation in time." Sarah's mind raced through options. Haven Station couldn't move. The jury-rigged radiation device was too unstable to risk any kind of acceleration. The Lumina vessel's drives were failing, and most of their power was being diverted to the transfer process. Running wasn't an option. "Tell me everything you know about this thing," she demanded. The information the Lumina shared was terrifying. The anomaly was like a living storm of quantum energy, consuming everything in its path and growing stronger with each system it destroyed. It seemed to be drawn to high energy sources, which was exactly what they'd created with their makeshift radiation device. Sarah gathered her senior crew in the command center, the holographic displays showing both the approaching threat and the ongoing evacuation. "We can't run, and we can't hide," she stated plainly. "So we fight." "Ideas." Dr. Zhang spoke first, her usually calm voice excited. "The anomaly feeds on energy, yes. What if we could give it indigestion?" "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "The radiation device we built. It's already operating well outside normal physics. If we modified it to generate opposing quantum frequencies, created a destructive interference pattern." She trailed off, making calculations on her tablet. Miguel picked up the thread. "We could set up a resonance cascade, like trying to push two magnets together the wrong way, but on a quantum level." "Would it work?" Sarah looked between them. "Maybe," Zhang admitted. "But we'd need to rebuild half the device while it's running, and if we get the calculations wrong by even a fraction, the station explodes," Miguel finished grimly. Sarah turned to the Lumina representative who had joined them. "Your people understand quantum physics far better than we do. Would you be willing to help?" "Of course," the crystalline being pulsed with determination. "We offer whatever knowledge we have. Though we must warn you, we attempted something similar in our home system. We failed." "You didn't have human engineering on your side," Miguel said with a fierce grin. "We specialize in making things work that absolutely shouldn't." The next 8 hours were a blur of desperate activity. The evacuation continued as fast as they dared while teams of humans and Lumina worked to modify the radiation device. More ships arrived responding to their distress call, bringing supplies and offering to help evacuate the station's crew. Sarah refused evacuation. So did every member of her crew. "Haven is our home," she told the latest captain to offer sanctuary. "And right now, it's the only hope these people have." With 2 hours remaining, they were as ready as they could be. The radiation device had been transformed into something even more improbable. A quantum weapon crafted from spare parts and theoretical physics. The remaining Lumina were crowded into every available space in the station, their crystalline forms adding their own light to Haven's emergency illumination. "Energy storm entering sensor range," Lisa reported, her voice steady despite her white-knuckled grip on her console. 1 hour to intercept." Sarah stood at the main viewport, watching the approaching maelstrom of light and energy. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, like watching the surface of a star tear itself apart. Behind her, the radiation device thrummed with power, ready to be transformed from a life-saving tool into a weapon. "All hands, final positions," she ordered. "Miguel, start the power-up sequence. Dr. Zhang, monitor those quantum frequencies. Everyone else, lock down your sections and prepare for turbulence." As her crew moved to their stations, Sarah felt a strange calm settle over her. They had done everything they could. Now they would find out if human determination and ingenuity, combined with alien knowledge, could stand against a force of nature. The storm approached, its leading edge beginning to interact with Haven's outer sensor arrays. Inside the station, the radiation device's hum changed pitch as Zhang and Miguel made their final adjustments. There would be no second chances, no opportunity to correct mistakes. Sarah took her position at the command console, hands hovering over the controls that would trigger their desperate gambit. Through the viewport, she could see the storm beginning to envelope them, reality itself seeming to twist and distort. "On my mark," she said clearly, watching the energy readings climb. "Haven Station doesn't fall today." Legacy of Haven. The quantum storm engulfed Haven Station in a maelstrom of impossible colors and writhing energy. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to fold and unfold like origami in the hands of a mad god. Warning alerts screamed from every console as the station's outer hull began to deteriorate under forces it was never designed to withstand. Energy levels at critical. Miguel shouted over the growing chaos. "The device is ready." Sarah's hands tightened on her command console. Timing would be everything. Too soon, and their attack would be absorbed and turned against them. Too late, and there wouldn't be enough of the station left to matter. "Dr. Zhang," she called. "Quantum resonance patterns are aligned." The physicist responded, her voice steady despite the sweat running down her face. "The Lumina calculations are perfect. We'll only get one shot at this." Through the storm's interference, Sarah could see the crystalline forms of their Lumina guests glowing brighter, adding their own energy to Haven's shields in a desperate bid to buy more time. The sight steeled her resolve. These people had crossed the galaxy seeking refuge, and humanity's response would not be to fail them now. "All hands, braced for impact," Sarah ordered. "Miguel, on my mark. Divert all power to the device. Everything we've got, including life support." Her crew's acknowledgments came without hesitation. They all knew what was at stake. The storm's energy tendrils began to penetrate the station's outer sections. Metal groaned and buckled as fundamental forces went to war with basic matter. Sarah watched the sensor readings climb, waiting for the perfect moment. "Now," she commanded. Miguel slammed his hand down on the activation sequence. For a split second, every light on Haven Station went dark. Then the radiation device exploded into life with a sound that seemed to tear at the fabric of reality itself. The quantum weapon they'd built didn't fire a beam or launch a projectile. Instead, it created a bubble of perfectly ordered spacetime, an island of impossible stability in the chaos of the storm. The effect was like throwing a stone into a raging river. The storm's energy flow shattered against their quantum barrier. Its own power turned back upon itself. "It's working," Dr. Zhang exclaimed, her eyes wide as she watched the readings. "The resonance cascade is—" Her words were cut off by a massive shockwave that threw everyone against their restraints. The storm was fighting back, trying to overwhelm their defense through sheer power. "Hull breach in Section D," Lisa reported. "Emergency force fields holding, but we're losing structural integrity." Sarah watched as the battle between ordered and chaotic energy played out before them. The station shuddered continuously now, systems failing faster than emergency backups could compensate. But the quantum barrier held, forcing the storm to expend more and more energy trying to break through. "Power reserves at 15%, Miguel warned. 10%. 5. Just when it seemed their gambit would fail, something remarkable happened. The Lumina, who had been using their crystalline bodies to help reinforce Haven's shields, began to pulse in perfect synchronization. Their combined light formed patterns that matched the quantum frequencies of the device, amplifying its effect. The storm's energy began to fold in upon itself, caught in a trap of its own making. As the humans watched in awe, the massive maelstrom of destructive force collapsed into a singularity no larger than a coin, and then winked out of existence. For a long moment, there was total silence on Haven's bridge. Then the cheers began, human voices joined by the musical tones of Lumina celebration. "Damage report," Sarah called, allowing herself to finally relax her death grip on her console. "Bad, but fixable," Miguel responded, grinning despite his exhaustion. "The main structures held together, mostly. Life support is stable. The radiation device, well, it's toast, but we can build a better one now that we're not rushing." Sarah turned to their Lumina representative, whose crystalline form was glowing with renewed vigor. "Your people's help made the difference. We couldn't have done this without you. And we would not have survived without Haven Station." The being responded, its light patterns showing deep emotion. "You took in strangers, rebuilt your home to save us, and then stood with us against a force that destroyed our entire civilization. Humanity has proved itself beyond any doubt." In the days that followed, as repair crews swarmed over Haven's damaged hull and supply ships arrived with much-needed materials, Sarah found herself in countless meetings with both human and Lumina leadership. The station was to be expanded, transformed into a permanent joint human-Lumina installation. The refugees would stay, their knowledge of quantum physics and energy manipulation complementing human innovation and resourcefulness. 1 month after the battle, Sarah stood at her favorite viewport, watching crews install the new permanent radiation matrix that would sustain their Lumina residence. The station's population had nearly quadrupled, with new modules and sections being added almost daily. Haven had become exactly what its name promised, not just for humans pushing the boundaries of known space, but for anyone who needed a safe harbor. Trading vessel requesting docking clearance, Lisa's voice came over the comm. They're carrying parts for the new quantum communications array. Clear them for docking. Sarah responded, smiling as she watched a group of human engineers and Lumina scientists heading to their latest joint project. The station's corridors rang with multiple languages now, human voices mixing with crystalline tones as two very different species learned to work and live together. Haven Station had started as humanity's last stop before the unknown. Now it had become something more, a symbol of what could be achieved when people chose to help strangers, to face impossible odds, and to build something new together. The quantum storm had come to destroy, but instead it had forged something remarkable, a legacy of cooperation, innovation, and hope that would light the way forward for both species.